This tweet was posted, I believe, yesterday. Very popular, got 12,000 likes. The author writes, when the Bible says, do not lean on your own understanding, the Bible is being serious. Your heart is deceitful, your emotions fluctuate, your understanding does not see the overall big picture. God never lies. God never changes. God knows all. Trust Him. So the message is don't trust yourself because you are sinful and you are deceitful and self-deceived. Instead, trust God in the Bible. This appears to be a reference to Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, as well as an allusion to Jeremiah talking about the wickedness of the human heart. So that's the message here, which apparently was a very well received message, liked by many people. Don't trust yourself because you are deceitful, trust God. Well, I take it that the message here is don't trust human beings, not just yourself, but don't trust other human beings either, because they're also deceitful and they're also self-deceived and they're also unreliable, right? It's not just you. But isn't that also true then of the person who wrote this tweet? So, who is the person who runs this account, John Charles Ryle? Well, we don't know. This person describes themselves as being dedicated to keeping alive the legacy and writings of J.C. Ryle, along with other encouraging quotes. So we don't know if this person wrote this quote or if they got it from Ryle or from someone else. But the problem, of course, is that they've offered advice to trust the Bible, but it's their advice. You see, this original tweet, it's like a mini sermon. It gives you a text, but then it tells you what the text means according to this speaker, and it tells you then how to apply the text. In other words, there is an interpreter that is inserted between you and the text. Between you and Proverbs 3 is the person who is voicing their own opinion in the tweet. And the problem is that if the tweet applies to you, the tweet also applies to that person. So if you should be skeptical and have caution and be wary of your own interpretation, you should also be cautious and wary of the interpreter of this tweet. So the dilemma is this person is unaware that they're not offering you direct contact with the Bible here, but rather they are the interpreter inserted between you and the Bible. Previously, this tweet is noting you were the one inserted, your own interpretation was inserted between you and the Bible, and your own interpretation is flawed. But that is equally true of the writer of this tweet. You can call that the dilemma of the naive realist. So, put simply, naive realism, first of all, it's a realism. It's, in other words, a belief that we can have reliable knowledge about the world around us. Naive realism is an expression of this confidence that we can have through reliable knowledge about the world. It's an expression of this which is naive in the sense that it lacks critical awareness of the fallibility of some of the mediated ways that we experience or interpret or come to have knowledge about the world. So you are a naive realist, for example, if you're wearing glasses all the time to see the world, but you don't realize that you're wearing glasses. You don't realize that those glasses may be tinted, that they may in other ways skew the way you see and interpret the world, and that other people may see or interpret it in different ways. And that's where the naivete comes. Similarly, here, this person is a naive realist because they are exempting themselves from the very thing that they're attributing to you, which is the fallibility, the unreliability, the deceitfulness that stands between the reader and the text. They say that applies to you, but that doesn't apply to them because they can tell you what the text means and you can reliably trust them as you go forward in reading and applying the text. So not only is naive realism inconsistent, not only is it a matter of identifying the speck in your neighbor's eye whilst being unaware of the plank in your own eye in terms of your own fallibility, fallenness, deceitfulness, etc. But then it opens up a danger because naive realism, whatever it exempts from critical introspection, that now becomes unchallenged. We are now no longer attentive to the degree to which that may be deceitful or unreliable or fallible. So if you're a naive realist about your sense perception, you just accept whatever your sense perception tells you about the world. Well, then you are now at risk of being deceived, tricked, misled by your sense perception because you don't appreciate the many ways that your sense perception can mislead you. The same if it goes to trusting your memory uncritically or trusting your rational thinking or your moral intuitions uncritically. And the same applies if you uncritically trust certain authorities in the church, whether they are the anonymous person running a Twitter account, whether they are a pastor in your church, or whether they are a trusted teacher. If you are uncritically accepting whatever they say and exempting them from the same critical scrutiny you apply to other things, you are at greater risk of being misled and deceived. And that's the dilemma of the naive realist. So, well-intentioned though it may be, this tweet is a great example of naive realism and the peril that can flow from it, because now you are told, even as you are encouraged to be aware of your own deceitfulness, you are not warned equally to be aware of the deceitfulness of the very person who wrote the tweet. And if you can't challenge your teachers, your leaders, then you are at greater risk of being misled by them, tricked by them, potentially hurt by them, abused by them. So, what is the solution to naive realism? Well, it's simple and hard. It's simple in the sense that what you have to continually do is to say, okay, I need to be consistent in applying this same level of critical scrutiny to everything and everyone. So this is where you say, you know what, maybe this is true, maybe not, but I have to be critical of what this person says, just like I'm critical of myself. And if they're going to tell me this is what Proverbs 3 means, maybe, but I'm going to study that for myself and look at other sources and not just take their word for it because I'm going to exempt them from the same critical scrutiny I apply to everything else. So that's a matter of becoming consistent in your own critical scrutiny. Be as critical of the authorities within your community as the authorities outside of your community. Don't just view yourself as deceitful and prone to error, view others as deceitful and prone to error. The other thing I would just say is also recognize that there is such a thing as reasonable trust. So if you followed only the one side of the doubt and the skepticism and the criticism, you could well end up as a skeptic, a cynic. But you can counterbalance that by recognizing that all of life is an extension of faith or trust in what we believe to be reasonable, generally trustworthy authorities, whether the authority is our sense perception or our memory or our moral intuition or our reasoning or some trusted authority you read on a Twitter account or your local pastor. All of these sources are potential sources of knowledge, and we may be reasonable in assenting to them absent any reason to doubt them or be skeptical of them. So we can have trust, but we have to counterbalance that with a consistent application of reason and skepticism and doubt and critical introspection and atrospection. And in that manner, outrospection, in that manner, we can be more cautious and less prone to fall into the traps of a naive realism while instead adopting a more critical realism.